Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. I'm your host, Chris Noble. Today's guest is David Gibson, and this is going to be a really fascinating one, all about sound, frequency, music, and the power that they all hold in today's day and age, and also where that's come from our ancient past. Now, a little bit more about David. So, David is a pioneer in the modern sound healing movement and is one of the world's leading authorities on sound, music, and vibration as tools for healing and transformation, which we're going to get into a lot of that today. Now, he's also the founder and director of the Globe Sound Healing Institute, where he's trained thousands of practitioners through state approved certification programs in sound healing, therapy, and audio recording. Now, David's also an author of multiple best selling books, including The Complete Guide to Sound Healing and The Art of Mixing. And his sound healing music has been used in hospitals and medical centers across the United States, which is absolutely amazing. He's also produced 16 international sound healing conferences and founded the Sound Healing Research Foundation and the Medical Sound Association, bringing together doctors, therapists, and researchers, exploring how sound and vibration, how they can support the healing process from everything from PTSD to anxiety, to chronic pain and many other things. Of course, as you know, anyone who's watched the show, this is a huge area of interest for me as a musician myself in the therapeutic realms of music and sound therapy. So today's episode is going to be really, really interesting. I'm really excited to have David. So, David, welcome to Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. How are you doing today?
Great. Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. So, I think would be a great idea to start off the episode today would be to give the audience, a little sense of how did you start down this path of sound, frequency, music healing. I know for me, it was a really serendipitous situation. I had no idea that sound and music could be more than entertainment when I was a child. And so I would love to hear what's your story? How did you get to where you are today? And specifically, how did you come across sound as a healing modality?
I started as a professional recording engineer, and I worked with a lot of major groups, including James Brown's band, the Doobie Brothers. And at one point, I started noticing this magic coming across from different musicians where I would get chills and goosebumps, and sometimes the room would turn purple, right? And I thought, how can we reproduce this magic at will? And so I was teaching audio recording for many years. We had a college of just audio recording, and over 25 years ago, we added on the sound healing as well. But there's another thing that's really interesting. In audio recording, I came up with a whole visual system for showing different structures of mixes. So in this visual system, each sound, each instrument in the mix is a sphere. So I have a whole framework where I could show volume as front to back, panning as left and right, and frequency as up and down. Right. And that's my book, The Art of Mixing, which is the main book in the field of mixing for 20 years. But then I realized I could actually put those spheres of sound inside the body. So I came up with a whole virtual reality system where you can actually look down and see a graphic of inside of your body and all your organs, and you can take sounds and frequencies or music and put them in different organs, even based on assessment systems. Right. And I thought, if I'm going to be putting sounds and visuals inside the body where they actually vibrate physically with a sound table and a sound vest, so you see them right where they're actually vibrating physically in the body. I thought, if I'm going to put sounds inside the body, I need to really start studying it so I don't explode any organs. So that's where I got into it even more detail to really see exactly what would be healing. But then it took a whole nother level when I really got into how can we get freaking high? How can we run universal love? How can we obtain oneness with the universe and unity consciousness, which is now measurable with EEG, right? And so it's really gotten into a whole realm just besides healing. We're looking at changing the whole medical system and really getting it into the mainstream. So we're doing a lot of science and a lot of studies with we're setting up a research facility. But then there's also the whole aspect of just getting people really high. But what's cool is when you're really high, there's no more anxiety. There's no more depression. There's no more PTSD. So we're talking an end to all mental emotional issues. The only problem is why get out of bed? You know,
Well, yes, and also, we got some pharmaceuticals that might not like these modalities too much, but it's inevitable, and honestly, David, like I think everyone relates in a sense to the high that you get from music and sound because we've all been to concerts at one point in our life where we've seen one of our favorite artists, and there's going to be a song or two and a moment during that concert where you're like, I'm good. This is it. I'm connected to oneness of the universe, God, whatever it is. And you might just call it being unbelievably high, but it's just such an euphoric feeling. And, what do you think we're maybe stumbling upon or remembering maybe more accurately here when you talk about this universal oneness, this getting high on music, and yet it's like we think of getting high as a fun recreational thing, but when it gets rid of PTSD, anxiety, and all these other things, it's clearly not recreational. What do you think's really going on here? Maybe on a spiritual, but also a scientific level when we get high and it alleviates all these stresses.
well, to take a step back, the basis of all sound healing is the difference between chaotic vibrations and stable, consistent vibrations. The chaotic vibrations are like fear, or anxiety, or anger, or pain, or even just stress, right? Versus the stable, consistent vibrations, which are all of the vowels. Anybody can feel the difference, right? So that's the basis of all sound healing, and that's why it works. It's a matter of overcoming the chaos with stable, consistent. And what I've learned is peace is a frequency humming consistently. That's stable, consistent. That's all the vowels. It's also any drone instrument, which are crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, tuning forks, didgeridoo gongs, all these stable, consistent, also stable, consistent rhythms. So that's really the basis. Now, we can use instruments, but you can think of emotions as chaotic or stable, consistent as well. So if we're just running gratitude, that's stable, consistent. I mean, when people make the sound of how they feel when running gratitude, it's like always a vowel. It's never like right. It's or what about compassion? Or love. So that's stable, consistent. But then there's the level of universal love and oneness. Most people, when I ask in classes and workshops, don't even know what that is. 70% of the people I ask don't even know what universal love or oneness is. And when I ask, well, how many of you can actually access it at will? That goes down to like 25%, less than 25%. But it's incredible. The people that say they can access universal love, it's like unbelievable. When I've experienced it, it's like it's way better than any relationship. It's similar, it's the same energy, but it's just way more powerful and way more intense. And when you're in the energy of universal love, massive healing starts happening. It's really, really profound. Now, we can actually measure with EEG the actual rhythms of each of the lobes when you're in universal love and actually take that map of your brain and apply it to someone else with electrodes. We have to tune it to the person, but then we can get them into universal love when they don't even know what it's like. But then there's oneness and unity consciousness. My friend Jeffrey Martin is actually has frequencies that he's done research on for microtubules in the brain, and he can play ultrasound into the brain and bring you into oneness and unity consciousness in the lab every time. And he can show where you're there from the EEG map. Right? And it's so effective. He's now doing classes on how to incorporate oneness and unity consciousness into your daily life, because really you may not get out of bed. I mean, you might go homeless. Why go to work, when you're blissed out? And when you're one with the universe, most people report there's universal love there as well. So, what we're also looking at, and I'm really excited about this, is to do the EEG map of your brain when you're one with the universe and apply it to you, or to another person, that is, that can't even get there. Once you're there in any of these states, we can do the EEG map and then and train you back to where you were and get you there all the time. The problem is for people that never experienced it. So we do EEG maps on people that have experienced it and apply that map to the new person's brain. This is incredible. Not only is there no more anxiety or depression or PTSD when you're actually one with the universe, you're blissed out. But here's the most important thing of all: when you see everybody as part of you, compassion is 100% built in. If we can get this to go viral, which will be pretty easy because it's like freaking the best bliss ever, we can ultimately get the whole planet into oneness and unity consciousness, and there will be no more war. There will be nobody hurting anybody, because you see exactly that we're all exactly one, right? The potential is massive. It's really massive.
It's so exciting, David. Thank you for sharing all that because it's it's it is mind blowing. I think this is why I got into the work as well, because I could just see how much of a game changer it is and how much of I mean, we have similar, I think a lot of us, and certainly I'm sure most of our audience watching and listening to this podcast, we all want the world to be in a better situation. We all want to see peace. We all want these things, but how do we get there? Right?
Uh-huh. There's one other thing I want to share that's really important,
Please.
that we can do now, that's really interesting. When you're one with the universe or in universal love, you're actually mostly in a brainwave state of theta, which is between 3.5 and 7 cycles per second. Like whoa, 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 whoa. Well, when you tune in to multiple things at once, like sparkles on the water, or when you tune in to a view, everything in a view, we go into theta. Multiple things at once takes us into theta. The left brain can't handle that much information. When you tune into all the sounds in a mix of music, all the instruments at once, you go into theta. That's probably why I became a recording engineer. When I got stoned in high school and listened to headphones, and I would become the music. I would totally become all at once, right? But also, when you listen to all the frequencies within the instruments of sound healing, all the different harmonics, especially a gong. Holy moly, a gong's got like thousands of frequencies. The left brain can't handle it at all. So we go into theta, which is the exact same state you're in when you're one with the universe. So it's just a little step to get there. What's really interesting is everybody's theta rhythm between 3.5 and 7 cycles per second. Everybody's rhythm is a little bit different. Mine's a little bit different than yours. So what we've been doing is finding your rhythm of a person's, where they're at peace, which is their rhythm of theta. Right? And then if we want to, and theta is for creativity. That's where we get downloads. So if you want to do artwork, it's really good to be in theta, besides love and oneness. But also, if you take that rhythm of theta and cut it in half, you now have your rhythm of delta, which is for sleep. So we could when we find your rhythm, we can actually get you actually blissed out and so you can sleep. But then we can also double that theta rhythm and get you into alpha for presence and learning. And then we can double that and get you into beta, your beta, and overcome ADHD. And then double that and get you into gamma. So we play each of the 12 notes and rhythms and see which one makes you the most peaceful, calm, and still, and then give you CD downloads in delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma tuned to you. So when we're doing this higher consciousness stuff, when we have the map for unconditional love or for unity consciousness, we have to take that map and tune it to your metabolism rhythm. But this is just the beginning. Oh my God. Okay. So about 2 years ago, you'll love this because it's all about music in the body. About 2 years ago at 4 in the morning, my guide said, Dave, if you can imagine all 11 songs of your 11 medical systems, nervous system, circulatory, respiratory, and such, you can actually heal every disease there is. I'm like, oh, great. How are we going to do that? Well, first, we can actually take an electron microscope, which there's now light microscopes, and measure the frequency of a cell scientifically. Precisely, not only just the frequency of the cell, but all the frequencies within the cell. So we can then find the nodes within each of the 11 medical systems. Let me explain it this way. If you have a acupuncture point, you can actually measure that frequency pretty easily. When energy flows through a meridian, it's playing a song, a very specific melody, ba da da da, through the different acupuncture points. Add a very specific rhythm based on your metabolism, which is your average of your heart rate and brainwave rate, where you're at peace. So there's an actual song playing through the meridians. Well, what we're talking about now is the song playing through each of the 11 systems. If you don't have a smooth flow of music through your nervous system with the electricity, you're going to be shaky. If you don't have a smooth flow of energy through your circulatory system or blood, you could have a heart attack. If you don't have smooth flow through the digestive system, all types of problems happen. Smooth musical flow through each of the 11 medical systems is the definition of health. No blockages, right? So we can measure the cells, which are the notes of each of those systems now, and we can get the rhythm from the EKG and EEG. We're actually we do it now in our where we play the 12 notes, but we're creating an app that will do it automatically with EKG and EEG. So now we've got the notes and the rhythm, which are it's the song of each of the 11 systems. And then we can use needles with frequencies and play that song through the system, da, 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 smooth flow, or microcurrent pads or our sound vest and play it through the system with sound, or we can use infrared light, ultrasound, even scalar waves, and do them all at once. Something's going to happen as we play each of your 11 songs through your 11 medical systems to heal every disease. Last year, my guide said, when you really focus on musical flow as opposed to frequencies, frequencies are part of the flow, those are the notes, right? But when you really focus on the flow, smooth flow without blockages is the definition of health. You can heal every disease there is. And I'm like, really? Every disease? They're like, yes. I'm like, yeah, right. They're like, yes. Like, okay. So that's where we're headed now, is measuring the notes and rhythms of all 11 systems. Ultimately, we're going to measure all 70 trillion cells. Everybody's frequencies are a little bit different, right? So what we've learned, though, is the relationships, which is a musical interval between one cell and another, we believe are the same from person to person. So we're going to use AI to map out the musical interval relationships between all of the cells. You can even do it with the organs. We'll find the overall frequency of the heart. What's that in relation to the liver? And we find this in this musical interval relationship template of perfection for a human. And then we can resonate you into that template of perfection and do your 11 systems at the same time while in virtual reality watching it. Holy moly, psychedelic, beams of light flowing through each of the 11 systems. Oh my God, that's where we're headed to heal all physical disease. And then we do the universal love and oneness and heal all mental emotional issues.
It's like everything. You got it all covered with sound.
Yeah, it's not just sound, it's electromagnetics, it's light, it's all vibration. The It may not happen in my life, but I can see it now where we can actually get rid of every disease. So we're setting up the think tank with all of the doctors that are specialists in different diseases and applying this framework of flow, not only through the whole body, but down to the cellular level. What's the flow at the cellular? What's the flow at the atomic level? I just interviewed Bruce Lipton last year. He said you can actually measure with a microscope now the actual spin of at the atomic level. We can measure that actual frequency and even work at the atomic level. But ultimately, oh my God, you know that matter goes in and out of reality 600 billion times per second. That seems like the core, deepest, fastest frequency where consciousness and matter meet. Once we really can look at that level, I mean, who figured this out? 600 billion, there must be a way to measure it, right? Now we can actually look at the core level of matter and consciousness at the atomic level and then work at that level even below the cellular level. Oh my God, the potential it's really unbelievable. And then we just get on the sound table and get vibrated to bliss while we're waiting for it all to happen.
Yeah, sounds pretty great to me. Sign me up. Dave, it makes me think, David, like this is an amazing present day and future that we're really moving into with all this stuff. But of course, as the show title might suggest, we like to look into the past here as well. And I can't help but from my own research see so many parallels with the work you're doing now with the ancients. Of course, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in India, whether it's in
Mhm.
Mexico, clearly the ancients, what I mean, I'm saying ancients is a very broad term, like thousands of years ago. There's many different cultures and civilizations that clearly revered sound frequency as um, not just a healing modality, but it's just a way of life. As an example, it's a way of generating energy. It's a way of moving things around, levitating things. It's a way of course, in the medical sense, healing, well, pretty much every modality possible, but so on and so forth. It's used to, for food. It could be used for anything. And I think I would be curious to know if through your research, have you had any interactions with the past and history and learning from any of these ancient cultures that definitely were using sound?
Well, when I was in Egypt, in that temple where you're in your background, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. You know, there's many people that say when you actually find the resonant frequency of a sacred temple or a pyramid, it will open up a portal to another dimension. Right? So we're talking about the body now. But when you really tie all of this into the whole universe and to the whole grid on the planet, then we're talking a whole nother level because it's really way beyond just us. I mean, here, I'll give you a perfect example, then I'll come back to Egypt. So there's a frequency in the atmosphere, which is a Schumann resonance that is triggered by lightning, and it's 7.83 cycles per second. But HeartMath has also measured zero point 0.1 cycle per second in the atmosphere. and it's almost as strong as the Schumann resonance. And they found it's coming from cosmic rays from other galaxies. Well, HeartMath has found that when you're resonating love, your brain also goes into a rhythm of zero point 0.1 cycle per second, which is one beat every 10 seconds. It's like a breath. So it's like there's aliens out there sending love into our atmosphere to resonate us into love. But I live right on the ocean, and on a day where the waves are actually coherent, I found the time between each wave is average around 0.1 cycle per second. You can even breathe to it. Right. So there's a whole range in the cosmos. Now, in Egypt, in the every temple I was in, I would tone a frequency sweep to find the frequency that the sound resonated at in that chamber. It's basically what we're finding is that the wavelength of the sound, when it equals the actual distance between the walls, it creates acoustic resonance where it gets louder. So you just go up and down like this, and when you hit it, it gets louder. Right. So in the King's Chamber, I was doing that, and it was really cool. Although it's funny because when you're in there with the public, they won't let you tone. So I had my mouth closed. I'm like, and the whole room's ringing with that resonant frequency, and the tourists are like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But then I leaned over into the sarcophagus and I did a frequency sweep into the sarcophagus. And when I hit its frequency, it was like, woo! The whole room lit up like a Christmas tree, right? So I laid in the sarcophagus and toned that frequency and went out of my body into the Akashic records below the pyramid. And there was a guy there guarding a door. And I said, "Can I come in?" And he goes, "Your consciousness is not high enough." I'm like, shit. About a half hour later, the tourist cleared out, and I got in the sarcophagus again and toned that frequency. It was freaking loud, really loud when I hit the resonant frequency of the sarcophagus, and went out of my body into the Akashic records again. I said, "Can I come in?" He says, "Okay." He opens the door, and energy, which was more like information, came streaming up my spine and transformed me completely. I could do sound way better, dramatically better. I just saw my friend who was just there last year, actually a graduate from our program, and she actually knew the technique. I told her. So she did the same technique in the sarcophagus. She had had chronic fatigue for 15 years and could barely get out of bed. And she said when she hit the frequency, the actual chamber, the King's Chamber, it opened up into the sky and a beam of light came down into her head, and her whole body completely disintegrated and was put back together. And the chronic fatigue is now completely gone after 15 years. Right? There's portals by actually finding the resonant frequencies of these ancient temples, and it's really profound to I had experience like many experiences in Egypt where I was toning the resonant frequencies and the ceiling would open up and love and light would pour in. But there's one other thing that's really uh, I occurred to me when I was there. There's all the hieroglyphs that are carved on the walls in many of the chambers. When you actually tone the resonant frequency of the room, the sound bounces off the walls and gets modulated by that carving in the wall and comes back out into your body. So when you tone in these chambers, it actually runs those hieroglyphs right into not only the body, but the water droplets in your body. So you're getting those hieroglyphs right in your body. India, they had it all figured out. The only difference here in ancient cultures is they didn't know how to explain it in common terms that we know today. They knew what, it was just they did it, right? So, so what that means is we're now taking the new terminology. I was a physics major at UC Berkeley, and using this terminology for all vibration to be able to explain it and actually create FDA approval to actually get the hospitals to lead it. That's how we don't die. We really get the hospitals involved. We actually make sound lounges and sound tables and dolphins that vibrate and pillows that vibrate and vests. And we've got a guy in Colorado that's working with 4,000 first responders. He has contracts with 75% of all of the police and fire stations in Colorado. When they have a crisis, which is about to commit suicide, Ed sends out our lounge, in the Black Op ambulance because you can't have any stigma, and he's saved 300 lives in the last 5 years. Now, hospitals and fire stations from Colorado are buying our sound lounges to have them in there for the first responders. We should really have this in every place to really help people get back to peace, right? And ultimately, every bed in every hospital will have to have FDA approval for that. We don't have to have it for the first responders, but for the FDA, well, for the hospitals, we should have every bed, which is already it has an EKG right next to it, and we can actually measure where you're at peace and vibrate you in the bed to get you really mellowed out so you're not completely stressed out like most people are in the hospital. So the whole difference is we knew in the ancient times they knew how to do it, but they didn't have the terminology to deal with our 3D medical system to get it into hospitals.
Yeah, like the 3D hoopla and challenges of the medical system that
Right, right.
are counterintuitive to our health, but uh, that's a whole other episode in and of itself. I'm so grateful that you are doing this work, David, and that there are solutions like this. I've always thought, this is a bit of a side tangent here, but I've always thought, like, as an example, ambulances, why do they have to sound so awful? I understand you got to clear traffic and you got to be heard. I get that there's a function, but what if it was emanating a pulse that still cleared traffic, but also healed the person who might be dying in the vehicle?
I love it. I
You know
love
what
it.
I
Oh
mean?
my
So
God.
it's like you're saying about the beds. Like, that's so logical, and to me, that's a bit of the hope that I have, is that no matter, even though the system's a very corrupt system, your solutions are so sound, pun intended, that the results speak for themselves. And this Colorado example is a great example of, like, when it works, and ultimately that's going to prevail more than bureaucracy or whatever is in the way of all this, right? So thank God it's working.
It's another thing. I just saw the movie 7 Years in Tibet, where they really show the Tibetan culture with the Dalai Lama before it all came down with China, and you know that culture had spirituality and loving kindness built into 30, or was it 3,000 ashrams in the country, and it was the most beautiful society. It was really incredible. So, where we're headed, and this is what I'm most excited about, is to actually create new schools for kids. We got a $100,000 grant to take our entire curriculum with our college into 2 Montessori schools. And we've created 2,500 exercises for kids from 3 months all the way up to 18 years. We've now incorporated actually into utero as well. And we've got it in many schools, and we've been doing classes with 3 to 6 year olds online, and we're now getting a grant to create 30 schools around the world in different countries and actually track how effective this is for the kids, where they're at peace, way more focused because they're at peace, way more healthy socially and emotionally, and they're having a blast, right? So they're excited about learning. Oh my God, we had a one of our instructors had a cymatics plate, which is the metal plate with powder on it, and had it so the 6 year olds could tone any vowel through Zoom into the plate and see the pattern, geometric pattern set up from their voice. And the kids were like, wow, 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 right? We can teach physics of sound and vibration and have kids going, whoa, right? And teach math that's applicable. So I'm really excited. I think this is going to change the planet more than anything. When kids are growing up learning about Fibonacci and golden mean math that's applicable to nature. And when you learn about flow systems in nature, like flow systems in the body, you can actually create businesses based on these flow systems, right? It's a whole systems thing. Really, the main thing I've learned, and this is from ancient spiritual traditions, it's all music. It's all music. At every level, it's music, which is frequencies or notes. A bunch of frequencies or notes makes up a timbre, which is a combination of frequencies or harmonics. And then the relationship between the notes and frequencies is the musical intervals. And then the flow is really where you add time, you get rhythm and melody. That's music, right? So you got the four levels, but you have those four levels of vibration even at the quantum level. So you can have an intention of love, or you can have an intention of love wisdom, a musical interval relationship, or you can have an intention of flowing energy of love coming down your crowns out your heart, and energy from the earth coming up your feet out your heart. So there's a flowing intention you're holding while you're doing work. So at all levels of reality, it's music. One, multiple frequencies, more than one, and flow. The body is the exact same. You can look at the cells as frequencies. You can look at a bunch of cells make up an organ. That's a timbre. The relationship between the cells and organs are musical intervals, but the flow through the system is the whole deal. There's another part here that's really interesting, because a lot of people are talking about in getting say this frequency is the whole deal. Well, it's part of all the levels of music, right? If you look at the frequency of the heart, there's a very definitive mathematical formula for figuring out the frequency of any materials. It's based on size, which is reciprocal. You double the size, it's half the frequency. It's also based on thickness and density, and those are square root relationships. So you can actually find the frequency of any heart or any organ just by measuring it in physics. But there's the frequency of the actual materials in the heart, the nerves and the muscles. There's the frequency of the fluids, the blood. There's the frequency at the cellular level. There's the frequency at the atomic level. There's the frequency at the photon level, light. There's the frequency at the electromagnetic level. There's the frequency at the quantum level, which is love. So there's this whole array of frequencies in the heart. And when we find all of those, we can really resonate the heart into health. But then we look at, oh, what about the heart as part of the whole flowing circulatory system? And what about the heart in relation to the global heart, right? So now we're looking at all levels of flow. And that's really the whole deal, instead of just trying to find one frequency. I mean, I just had someone yesterday, they said, Dave, there's a scientific study that shows the frequency of DNA is 8 hertz. And they sent me the research project. I'm like, well, what are they talking about? right? I mean, which DNA, which strand? DNA has three different frequencies, three different chemicals that make up each strand, right? And then uh, it's interesting because normally what we're looking for is overcoming chaos with stable, consistent. But when it comes to DNA, the deal with DNA is flipping the DNA so it actually is on or off. And frequencies can do that. So, does an actual frequency calm the DNA? Maybe, maybe it could. It's good. But, what's ideal, and this is where we're headed, this is probably the most incredible thing that could happen when they're already doing it with CRISPR, right? They're flipping the DNA. When we learn how our DNA got shut down years ago when it was programmed to be as servants, so to speak, and now we can reprogram that DNA so I never get upset again. So I'm always in one. And most importantly, so I live much longer. You know, it's like, it feels like I finally figured it out, mostly, where I'm kind of like not wondering how the universe works. Whereas most of my life, I was like, what the hell are we doing here? Right. So I finally get it figured out. And now I'm going to pass away. Right. We pass away. We need to live longer. They set it up, I think, so that by the time you get it figured out, you die. Whereas we need another 100 years to actually use this information where we figured out to change the world. That will be dramatic change when we can actually keep going once we get it figured out.
It's so exciting, and I'm really glad you brought that up. David, it's something that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, I mean, I know why they're not aware of, but this manipulation to our DNA from ancient times, and we've had many guests on this podcast talking about that, where you talk about beings like the Anunnaki and other these gods that have shown up in the past, have had a lot of interaction and clearly a lot of influence on us. And you get into the telomere caps in our DNA, right? And when you talk about that switching and flipping, it's the telomere caps that are, when you look at them, any geneticist looks at them, they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Chromosome number 2 is all different. It's got this flipped telomere cap situation going on. And that's, again, a telltale sign that we've had some genetic tinkering in the past, which has influenced our age, how long we live. It also influences. I've heard something. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard there's like a worship kind of gene where we're almost programmed to worship somebody above us, not the God of the universe, but beings that likely created us. And like you said, there's programming already inside of us that is, let's say, working against us. But the exciting thing is that, like with tools with sound, this is how we can reprogram that. And I like to talk about the solutions on the show, where we don't just talk about how screwed we are, or
Right,
how
right,
how
right.
we've been messed up a lot. It's
Well,
fascinating.
the number one thing is they shut down our connection to source, which is built in.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're talking about, universal love and oneness. I mean, that's really, and I get glimmers. I get glimmers all the time, and sometimes I'm like in the zone, like holy moly, and then I come back to the 3D work.
Reality.
Right, right, right. But imagine, because I read Alice Bailey, which is a spiritual leader from the 30s. I read Alice Bailey every night for 15 years. The whole deal, and we can't even imagine it, is when you are one with the universe all the time, it's completely different. It's like, the best way to explain it is when you're in love. When you're in love, you love everybody. It's like, oh, no matter what happens, it's like there's this bubble of love around you and it's no big deal. It's exactly like that to the nth degree, where everything is perfect. What's really interesting, though, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is technically when you're one with the universe, it's mostly right brain if you do an EEG map. But when you actually and and uh, look at that oneness from the left brain, Now you got the left and right brain working together. And it's tricky because the second you start thinking, you go out of the oneness. But you can actually work in this realm of bliss to actually completely manifest and change the whole yourself, change the planet. So, and that's a really high level because unless you do it in alignment with the with source and the plan, it will can screw things up. So, but we're talking about actually changing yourself and the world. I just had a great discussion. It's so important. You know, the number one thing that I think our biggest thing to learn on this planet is how to be at peace in the midst of any challenge or conflict. It's like the thing to figure out. And most people never figure it out. I've made headway, but I still don't have it down completely, you know. But that's really the whole deal. And it was funny. I was talking with my staff yesterday, and it was like, okay, when in your life do you remember that you started watching your thoughts? I don't even remember when it happened, but maybe my 30s or 40s, you know. Uh, but at some point, because I really watch my thoughts now. But then, when did you get good, and most people haven't, of actually watching them and being so still that you can choose a different thought and different energy while you're in the midst of a situation? That's incredible, right? That's really the whole deal. With sound, I've got 11 techniques. We have a whole class on this that's really cool. And the first technique to be at peace in the midst of chaos, which is the challenge, is to just let it be. Let it be. No attachment. Second is to be in your body and to be in that point of awareness, which is the witness watching it. That camera never wobbles. It's perfectly still, and identify with that camera and just watch it all. The third is to do toning in the midst of a challenge. Ooh, right? Although I found that if you're in an argument with somebody, that doesn't really work very well. It kind of upsets them more, right? So you can do it silently, creating peace so you have more capacity to deal with the challenge. You can also, we actually get into finding the energy of your soul and toning that in the midst of a challenge. Or you could do a chant. I mean, you could do twinkle, twinkle, little star, as long as your brain is doing something coherent and peaceful, as opposed to, right? But then there's the challenges of sounds that are really annoying. When you got the siren, sing along with it. Woo! Doggies have it down. Woo, woo, right? Or a jackhammer. Oh, I love my seatbelt alarm in my car. I leave my seatbelt out off so I can actually sing along with it. Beep 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 beep. Right.
I've totally jammed out to that as well.
Then there's also the biggest one, and this is the ultimate. It's actually the one hardest, and that is gratitude for your challenge or conflict. It's really hard sometimes, especially when you're in it. But when you can go, thank you for this learning and growth I'm getting from this. Thank you. And then to learn compassion and be able to, the way I do it is I go, what brought them to do what they're doing? And my thought is always, they are entrained into mass consciousness of selfishness for tens of thousands of years. It's the norm. It's not their fault. They could also just be tired and sleepy and not and hungry, right? But then love is the easiest. Just send it love. Send that chaos love. Send love to all the chaos and craziness on the planet. stable, consistent vibration. The whole deal. Oh, last one is when you can access oneness, there are no challenges and conflicts. It's all in the plan. It's all perfect. It's all for growth. Right? That's really the whole deal, is to be at peace no matter what. And it's just finding a vibration that actually is still any of those. Right?
This is so amazing, David. I like 1,000 things I want to comment on, and I'm also reminding myself I'm running a podcast right now, so I want this to be nice for our viewers and listeners. But um, to kind of start to wrap this up, because this is just so fascinating. I love your perspective on everything, because it's stuff that I've felt and I've certainly researched and I've come across, but I haven't articulated it or had that perspective that you're bringing to it. And I've always thought life was a song, and we were talking about that earlier, where everything you can kind of break it down into a song, as above, so below, like everything in the universe, right, is a fraction or a fractal of itself. But with song, I've always felt like, because when you listen to music, anyone who listens to music, you're never listening to music to hear the last note. You're listening to a song to enjoy the journey. And I think that's so important, right? And I
I
think
love
just
that.
to start, like, kind of wrapping things up here, we've already talked about a lot of stuff here, but I would love to leave our audience with a couple more. You've already given us a lot, but a couple more practical tools that, like, how do you use sound in your day-to-day life? And we could also maybe try some things that are out of the healing realm, like just practical focus. That's where
Hmm.
I first got into things like binaural beats, where I had a really hard time focusing, and
Yeah.
so brain entrainment for me was a huge thing with the headphones. What do you recommend for our audience?
Well, we do have on our site, we've got all of our products. We've got the brainwave assessment software that we've come up with, and we can find your home note. That's so effective. We've got voice analysis, where we've done 20 years of research to see what notes missing in your voice correspond to different physical, emotional issues. That's really cool. But there's a couple of things that are just really, really effective. One thing that is critical is to be able to express yourself. So many people, especially women, are afraid to express themselves, mostly because men have been squashing the throat chakras of women for tens of thousands of years. And still today, intensely, some cultures, it's unbelievable still. But even in modern world, it's just ridiculous. And even guys don't know how to be balanced and express themselves in a balanced way, because I didn't have a mentor. My father was definitely not a mentor, right? So as babies, we had it down, right? If you had anything going on, you expressed it with a sound, wah, with zero thought as to whether you were doing it right or wrong. Right? And then around one or two, it's like, shh, shh. And then we go to school and there's no more sound, and we go to work, no more sound except around here, right? And then we lose that God given ability to express ourselves. And that's a blockage of flow. And the blockage of flow emotionally manifests as blockage of flow physically. It creates disease, right? So simply to start making weird sounds, blah, 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 blah. It's so cool with the 3 to 6 year olds. We had them going, blah, blah, blah. And another one's like, blah, 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 right? And then we had them making the sound of how you feel. We do this with the dementia patients. We've got 160 dementia patients we're working with. Make the sound of how you're feeling. I had this one guy, he's like this. Right? We had already done call and response to get them comfortable making sound again. Right. And he's like this. He's like catatonic. Right. And I said, can you do the sound of how you're feeling? And he goes, ah, and he looks up at me and smiles. Total connection, right? To be able to make the sound of how you're feeling without words. That's really cool. And then I had this one little 4 year old in the class, Krissa, and she's like, can we do the sound of love? And I'm, oh yeah. And she's like, ooh. And then 6 months later, I had a class with the Shift Network and had 500 adults in the class on the first class course, all scared to death to make sound. And Chris's mom was in the class with Chrissa, and she's a graduate, right? I'm like, Chrissa. She's like, hi, right? You want to lead these 500 adults with sound of love? And she's like, oh yeah. Ooh, that kid will never be afraid to express herself ever again, right? As a girl, too. So then the next thing is we talked about how any vowel creates peace and stability. If you just do 10 seconds, even 5 seconds of any vowel or hum as well, everybody listening, do it with me. It makes you still. Peace is a frequency humming. But here's what's really cool. Again, you can do it silently because often you can't make sound out loud. So even if you're at work, you can go, everybody, do a really loud vowel in your head silently. It makes you still. Here's the deal. A lot of people listen to like calming music to go to sleep, and it doesn't work so well because they've been stressed out the whole day. You got to go to a place of peace at least a dozen times throughout the day, at least once an hour. Right? And that can be as simple as 5 seconds of a silent vowel. And then now your whole system gets used to being at peace throughout the day. And when you have to go to sleep, it's relaxed. It's not wound up, right? That's the deal is go to and it could be a matter of listening to music if you can. It could be matter we do many things already. We go on walks or hikes. We, take a bath. There's all that do all any of even any of it works, but sound silently is so cool. But then just the simplest of all is any conflict or challenge, even if it's personal or global, send a sound of love to them. Everybody send a sound of love to all the people on the planet and listen for their hearts responding. And all those that are suffering and lost. And send a sound of love to your own heart. You don't even have to do it out loud, right? Just those things are so simple and can get you back to coherence and peace and stillness really quickly.
I felt it because I was towing along with our audience there. David, I well, words won't really do it justice right now, but sound might. This was an amazing episode. I am so grateful for the work that you do, and it's just so refreshing to see someone out there like yourself who's really balanced as well the esoteric, the spiritual with the science and the grounded practical ways that I mean, you and I both know that's the language that we have to use to get this work into the hospitals, into the medical system more, right? So it's nice that we're there's people like yourself that are also doing this, in that way, so that we can really start to fix the system from the outside in and from the inside out, all at the same time, right?
Right, right.
So, thank you so much. The things that you're talking about as well with Egypt, these I really loved what you said, especially with the hieroglyphs receiving the vibration. I've always thought there's like a hidden technology with hieroglyphs. It's like an old computer icon system or something, but I know that those ancient places, a lot of them, not just in Egypt, are all acoustic chambers that get activated with sound. And it's like sound was this ancient technology that we're remembering now. Yes, using it for healing and stuff, but to interact with these ancient sites, I feel like portals and doors are going to start opening more to people when we go to these places, because we're going to understand or remember how to actually interact with these places, because they are built, I believe, with
Yeah.
that intention in mind, like you experienced in Egypt, right?
Yeah, yeah, and not to mention Mount Shasta. Oh my God, I
Oh,
could go
yeah.
off on all the things that have happened to me there. Oh my
Well,
God.
and that's the
Yeah,
thing, it's just so many hotspots around the world, and the ancients understood that, which is why a lot of these sites were built there. So, anyway, we could go on for hours, and I'll have to have you back on the show because I've just got so many more questions for you. Where can the audience find you as we wrap up today? Where can they connect with you? And is there anything else that you got coming up? I know we've talked about a lot of this already, but is there anything else coming up that you want to let people know about, and just anything like that where they can connect with you?
yeah. Well, their main site is soundhealingcenter.com, and we've got four main things there. We got the school. We're the only state-approved college in the whole United States for sound healing. We have the store with over 400 toys and technologies. We also have the therapy center where we have a full range of treatments, and then we have the research foundation, which includes the Medical Sound Association with over 1,000 doctors creating treatment plans for all different issues, 30-page treatment plans. It's an incredible free resource for how to deal with different issues with sound and vibration. medicalsoundassociation.com. We also have every 6 months we do our sound healing conference. And it's always free, and there's sound baths before each uh, uh, presentation, so you get really high. We also have a weekend intensive coming up in January. And the big thing we do, of course, is our classes. We've got online classes, or we have a summer intensive here. We've got classes for 3.5 months in person here in Sausalito, just outside of San Francisco. So we have our classes as well. Um, and then uh, we've got open houses ever so often. Another one coming up on January 18th. And so, yeah, check it all out at soundhealingcenter.com.
And as everyone knows, that will be all in the show notes below. So check it out. Check out David's amazing work. And thank you so much, David, for being on the show today. Really, really, really appreciate you taking the time. And your wisdom and your knowledge and your information has just been blowing my mind for the last hour. And I know it has been for our audience. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the work you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Exactly. All right. I'm just going to take you off stage for a second. Stay on, though. I'd love to chat quickly after we record this podcast. And we're just going to end things off here. So, everybody, that was David. Wow. What an incredible episode. And as you all know, if you know anything about me, you know that everything we were talking about was so up my alley. And I hope it was up yours as well. I'm sure it was. So much to follow up on with David's work. Wow. Just make sure you check out his websites and check out a class or two. Go listen to some of the work he's created. It's sound, right? We've talked about it a lot on the show. It's the game changer out of all the things we've discussed. It really comes down to, as Nikola Tesla says, frequency, vibration and resonance. Essentially, is really what it all comes down to. So that was an amazing episode. Thank you again, David. And for those watching and listening, make sure that you check out ancientmysteries.unearthed.com as well for all of our upcoming events. We've also got an Egypt tour coming up in September 2026, where we have private access to the King's Chamber, to the Sphinx, and 5 other sites as well, where you can hum and you can tone. To a degree, we know all the ways to get around security in Egypt. There's lots of fun ways. And as David showed us, you can tone silently in your head, which I'm going to start using that more often, because I practiced it during the episode today, and it really helps. And we can all have times where we need to be covert with that. So that's a really helpful one. So Egypt, check out our website for that, or any of our sacred site tours. We do them every year. And of course, thank you again for everyone for just tuning into another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. We will catch you in the next episode. Until next time.